Hey, what's going on, everybody? This is Tyrone back with Tech Life. Great article here from Mike over at Light Reading. I will leave a link to it in the description so you guys could check it out. So T-Mobile disclosed some very interesting forward-looking statement at the Q4 earnings yesterday that had some analysts really questioning as to why this is happening, but nobody really asked that question. Everybody was dancing around it. Nobody asked T-Mobile, why are you guiding a slowdown on your home broadband service that has high demand? So the title of this article, why T-Mobile's FWA growth will slow. For the past 2 years, T-Mobile has been adding more than 500,000 FWA customers to its network every quarter. Now, though, company officials believe that figure will slip to 400,000. Here's why. So, like I said, I'll leave this article in the description so you guys can check it out. Great reasons listed from Mike, so I'll leave that in the description. So here's my take and my thoughts on that. I really don't, need to look at the article to give you guys that opinion. So T-Mobile may be prepping and preparing for certain things. One, they're prepping for bigger increases of usage over the next few years from already existing customers. So they have an obligation to serve the current customer as well as new customers, of course, but they're trying to keep the churn under control. They say it's getting better, but we publicly don't really know what that means. The only churn that they report is really the postpaid churn. We saw that spike about 9 basis points, and they don't really share publicly the churn on the FWA product. It could be a 3%, could be 4%, could be 5%, could be higher than that. And again, I stated this in a video a long time ago. If they go from a 7% to a 5%, they did improve by 2%, but they're still churning that base at 5%, which is very, very high. I mean, even higher than prepaid. Just as a comparison. Again, that's just me using an example. I don't know that for sure, but that could be a possibility. And now they're really trying to slow that down. So they increased the pricing back to the original cost, which is $60, and that may slow down that growth. And they may also be looking at managing the network a bit better on a per sector basis, as I mentioned. So now we have the soft cap in place after 1.2 terabytes. So they may not attract as many power users anymore. And if they've had power users potentially, right, just recently that they've gained, they may be able to move them to another ISP. That's also a possibility. I just don't see T-Mobile continuing to allow the existing base that's already been with the product for, since its launch. I just don't see them just going crazy on the network. I know apparently I haven't seen that verbiage yet, but apparently T-Mobile is stating, and I don't know how they're doing that. It must be some special code that they're putting in, but apparently customers that got the product before January 18th are not subject to that deprioritization, which I find strange. I just don't see, like, if somebody that has been on FWA that's been on there before January 18th and they're doing 5, 6, 7 terabytes a month, I mean, T-Mobile needs to monitor that usage. I don't care what they tell me publicly that they can handle terabytes of usage. If that one person and his family perhaps is doing 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 terabytes a month, you got to do something. You got to monitor that type of usage. That's a lot of usage that, keeps increasing. This year it'll increase. Next year it'll increase. You got to be able to monitor that. I am honestly surprised, to be very honest, that it has taken T-Mobile this long to implement some type of soft cap. I felt like the product should have launched with that soft cap from the beginning. I mean, AT&T, some of the other ISPs, the cable players, they have soft caps in place. Some of them even charge you for going over a terabyte. Some ISPs will charge you if you go over 1 terabyte. They will charge you X amount of dollar for each gig that you're using after 1 terabyte. So it's all a mix of why T-Mobile is expecting a slower growth. The price increase, because they already tested that before at the $60 price point. I think it was 2021. Their growth immediately slowed, from what I was told. So they went back to the $50 price point and it picked back up. So at the $60 price point, you're right in some of the lower entry level tiers of the cable players' price points. And it might be harder for them to really grow that product moving forward. So they're giving the market a heads up. The street doesn't like surprises. So that was T-Mobile being smart. If they didn't announce that yesterday, for an example, and the street put out their estimates in their Q1 models, and they say T-Mobile is going to do 560,000 ads for the quarter, and they come in at 400,000, that would be a huge discrepancy, and it would be perceived as a big negative for T-Mobile. So they got out ahead of that. So now the market, the street, they're going to model around that 400,000, maybe 440, maybe 430, something along those lines. So still, this is very interesting because if you look at the $60 price point, it may still be very competitive against some of the cable players. Some of the cable players, to replicate a similar amount of usage and a speed tier, you have to be at a very high plan. Like, for example, Cox, from what I've heard, in order to get a unlimited plan from them, you have to pay them like $150. So T-Mobile at $60 still looks way better. And I'm sure there are some other cable players to get a higher speed tier. In some areas, T-Mobile is quite fast on the FWA product. To get to that type of tier on a cable player, it probably will be more consistent, but you might have to pay 80, 90, or $100 to get to a higher tier, especially to get higher uplink. So T-Mobile might still sit very well at the $60 price point. But then some analysts have been questioning, okay, if T-Mobile is getting ready to get Auction 108, deploy that in the white spaces, that opens up more bandwidth. If they're going to modestly deploy C-band and DoD, that's going to open up more capacity on the towers. So why aren't they forecasting at least 450, 500,000? That's been a big question of the analysts, and that really where I think the why comes in. Why are they not forecasting? So that tells me, and I said this in the video yesterday, that tells me T-Mobile has no plan to aggressively deploy C-band and DoD. They just don't. They didn't add it to the prepared remarks. They don't have a plan to deploy that any more aggressive than what they alluded to when they were talking about congestion protection. They're going to put this on a few sites here and there. We'll see a couple of posts on Reddit, and that'll be it for the year. I truly believe that. So then next year they ramp up the C-band and DoD. Then could we hear different projection, different guidance for FWA? Perhaps. And that could be potentially, right? I'm just putting this out there. When they are ready to deploy the C-band and DoD at a bigger scale, they could use that for that capacity for the next uptick in guidance beyond the 7 to 8 million. They could next year present us with a guidance that says, okay, we think by 2028 or whatever, we can get to 15 million FWA customers using millimeter wave C-band, DoD, and some additional densification. They could very well add that in. So they are keeping that close to their playbook. They didn't want to use the C-band and DoD as part of the guidance outlook for 2024. It's very clear. It'll come at some point, but this year was just not the year for C-band and DoD. So let me know your thoughts. Let me know why you think the FWA is slowing down so significantly, almost between 100 to 150,000 less per quarter. Also, make sure you check out Mike's article. Lots of good info in that. Make sure you guys stay tuned. Like, share, subscribe if you're new. Follow my social media outlets. This is Tyrone with Tech Live. See y'all in the next one. Peace.